Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Draxyr from the Korean Challenger Bootcamp. I'm a challenger coach in the NA server. I'm partnered with ZGG, and with me today is Shanghai, your director. It's good to be here to make this content for you guys. How you doing, Shanghai?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I'm excited to talk about what we got here. Basically, we watched the game today between the two teams of your Gold League. You can
Illumination, Ignis, and Craig Hazard.
Yeah, and it was an interesting game. We saw Illumination Ignis just 2-0 their opposition pretty easily. And today we're going to talk about some key points of what amateur teams from bronze to platinum or iron to platinum should look for in their training and in their drafting to give themselves the highest chance of winning before their players even see the loading screen. Do you have any questions for me before we get started?
Nothing in particular, but I do have that topic to start off here.
Oh, yeah?
Uh, in the Twitch chat, we made a note of this before. There were a lot of people saying that the communication of Craig Hazard was the reason that they lost. You want to kind of give us some insight into that?
Sure. So, working at the Master Plus level, communication is a critical topic and all the way to the professional scene, of course, to make teams better than their opposition. How well can they communicate? What is their game plan, their shot calling, and their overall macros, all derivative of their ability to communicate to each other on what they're doing and how they can play as a team. However, communication is known as a multiplier of a team's skill level. So, for example, if you have a diamond or master team, their base skill level, their individual skill level, as well as their synergy as a team without ever having microphones added in, is a certain X variable. And then when you add in their communication ability, that multiplies that X variable to their actual team skill. And when we're dealing with iron to platinum teams in general, it becomes really difficult to try and focus on communication when their base variable, that X, is so low to start with. So the multiplier is just not as effective and therefore not as efficient to work on in training.
All right. So, what do you think to start off with that Craig Tempest could have done to maybe make it less of a impactful loss, kind of a stomp, if you will?
So, so we'll talk about two major things. The first is the draft phase, and this is especially good for the coaches and team captains that are worrying about this every single time they have a match or a scrim. And so this is a pretty critical part of the amateur or just competitive league scene in general. One thing I noticed, I don't know too much about these two teams, having just been introduced to ZGG as a whole. But in the Twitch chat, a lot of people are saying how a lot of the players of Illumination got their favorite champions. So Thresh for Awu, and I think it was one other, if you might enlighten me. Um,
Ari from Zerg.
that's correct. Yeah, so Ari for Azir. So generally, when you're looking at draft, there's two different things that you have to look at whenever you're planning out a pick and ban phase. The first thing is meta, right? And this is what the professional teams are always worried about. They're trying to figure out who's the strongest champion in this patch and which champion can counteract our team composition the most. That's also very strong. And that's their number one focus. The reason why that's their number one focus is because their players generally have very large champion pools. They can basically pull any champion from that role out into their game because they have so much experience playing those champions in solo queue or in scrims or whatever, and they can just play whatever fits that composition or that champ select or game man phase the best. However, the rest of us that are not pro players, we don't have that luxury. So this is the second variable that you have to consider for ban, which is comfortability. And this one reigns supreme all the way from bronze or iron to this is even more important than meta most of the time. For example, if you have a singed one trick on the enemy team, Singed is not doing all that great in the meta right now, but you're probably going to want to take away that champion because he's a gold player, you're gold players, and he's going to be much more comfortable on Singed than you might be on your own champion. So the meta gets overruled, and that becomes a thorn in your side whenever he's on that champion. And so we see the same thing happening in this elimination game, where Wu has that thresh, and uh, you might say like Gold Thresh or Megalol or whatever, but he's going to be better at Thresh than you are at your champion because that's his main champion,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what the difference is in the end.
So, saying that, would it be okay to, let's say, the Singed player play the Singed if the enemy laner was proficient at someone who was great against Singed?
Correct. So yeah, that'd be like the mind games portion of pick and ban, right? Like you're trying to bait them into picking something that you predict they will, and you have a countermeasure ready for it. That's very common in pro play, especially now with G2 being so big in the world scene. They're famous at doing this. Their pick ban is very innovative, and
Mm-hmm.
they have a lot of flexibility, and so that's why they're winning so many games worldwide. And so at the amateur scene, even in iron, bronze, silver, gold, we can take parts of that and say, okay, well, the basic idea is we predict what they are going to pick, and then we try and have a countermeasure. So if you have something specifically that you're super confident counteract what they want to do, maybe you can then make an exception. However, I will say this: if you're a player in the iron, bronze, silver, gold scene, and you think that you are proficient against a champion, you should probably let that decision go to a coach or something like that, because your perception of it might be skewed. For example, you might think that you're really good into Singed, but then you play against this guy who's a Singed main, and then you lose
Mm-hmm.
better at Singed than you are at playing against Singed. So that there's a bit of give and take there. And remember that when your enemy team wants to do something, they want to do that thing because it's good for them, not because it's not. Generally, if you're going to let them do the thing they want to do, you better be 100% sure that's the right thing. And that's really difficult to get in lower elo.
All right. You mentioned. I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. You mentioned something about a tier 1 giveaway.
Yes. So we just covered just a couple of things about pick and ban, and we're going to be going over that and much, much more here at the South Korean Bootcamp. Me and two students are here training for a month, and we are releasing a ton of educational information in an outreach that we are partnered with CGG for. That you guys can have access to just by joining the server, and even more unlocked by just paying $5 a week or $10 a week for different tiers. That you get so much educational information for such a little price compared to like 35 an hour for personal coaching, for example. It's ridiculous. So to increase outreach, we're going to give away 5 tier 1 subs to the members of ZGG. I'm not sure how you're going to implement the system, Shanghai, but I'm looking forward to it. And 5 lucky guys can get 1 week of tier 1 and see what it's all about. You do so.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else that you want to wrap up with?
Yeah. Whenever you win or lose in the lower elo amateur scene, try and figure out the easiest thing to fix, not necessarily the most important. That's a trap that a lot of people fall into. Try and find the easiest thing to fix right now and work on that instead of trying to find the most important thing. That's probably the biggest tip I can give.
Alrighty, thank you very much for your time. This has been Shanghai and Draxyr. If there will be more information on the giveaway down in the video description or in the board discussion, I haven't decided yet. But check one of those places if you're interested, and we will talk to you then.